And if you did that and you had a whole bunch of code, you should be able to, it's not showing what's on my screen. Oh, there it is. It's way over there. You should be able to copy and paste to get it into your file. All right, so I want to save this new file then, and I'm going to go ahead and just save it before I even start entering any code. So I want to go to my folder where I normally save all of my CIS120 stuff. So it's on my OneDrive. And then we're going to name this one Mood Computer. We saw that we could do a group comment inline documentation with 3 single quotes. This is the kind of documentation that I want to use for my header comments like this. We'll call these header comments that are up at the beginning of the program because they kind of give an overview of the program. And Python itself will recognize comments that are within those 3 single quotes as program documentation. So it'll help us with explain our program to others. Now, what I had done last time is program. And I want to see 3. We're going to say our purpose here is to check the mood. Now, one thing I want to change is up here, this keyword where I said program. Let's change that to say script. Because when I'm working with Python, since it's something that I have to have the Python interpreter to run this, it's more of a script or a series of commands than it is an actual compiled program. So not a big deal, big difference, but since you guys are going to be developers, we'll be a little more specific. Now I want to close that block comment. In our textbook, they have some great sample code, and they don't do any sort of subprograms. So this is really a good exercise for your brain to see some coding where we're using the subprograms and somewhere we're not, and everybody seems to just be able to read that code either way, and that's what we want. Right now we're working towards being able to read code that we're looking at, more importantly than creating it from our brains. Now, the first thing that we want to do in this program is we want to be able to use the random number routine. And to be able to use the system function for random number, we need to pull a library, a code library, into our program. So I'm going to put a comment here. Import the random number library. And then we're going to do that with this keyword import. And we want to import the random number library. And if we didn't know, and I didn't have this example code here to tell me that the random number library is named random, I could Google that. You know, I would use my Google G and be like, Python random number generator. And it would tell me what to do. I would have to look through some different articles and find the one I like. But I know now that I can use that import statement, and that makes that system function, this random number function, available to me in my program. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to use it. Now, after we've done that import statement, we want to print out kind of our welcome. So they want to print a message, and there's this cute, I sense your energy. Your true emotions are coming across my screen. And then we're going to do another print statement and be kind of mysterious and say, you are ... Okay, so now we've got kind of our welcome message there going. And we want to set up a variable to determine what the mood is. So let's call our variable mood. And we'd like to use a random number to set our mood. So we're going to call our random function called rand int. And that just returns a random integer. And a random is just any sort of number. You guys know what a random number is, like a lottery ticket or something where it says, oh, I'm going to give you the number 57. When we're working with a random number, we usually have like a beginning value and an ending value. The highest and the lowest number that we would want returned from that random number function. So that's the value that we're going to pass within our parentheses. What's the lowest value that we would want returned as a random number, and what's the highest? Well, with our mood generator, we don't want a whole bunch of different values. We just want something between 1 and 3. So get a random int between 1 and 3. Just like when I use the input function to read a number or a letter or whatever in from the screen from the user's input, this function, the random integer function, is going to return a random number between that value. And I'm going to use our mood variable to hold that value. Okay, so our mood variable is going to know what random number we got between 1 and 3. So let's take a look at that mood variable then. If mood gives us a 1, we're happy. So we're going to print out, let's see if I can do this. They want us to do some ASCII art here. So in our print, we're going to do some special printing, and we want to start out with an escape character, the backslash. And that's going to tell Python that we want to print this whole thing that's going to follow. So the backslash is right above your enter key. It's the slash that's leaning backwards, and that's what we want there after that open parenthesis. Now, we're going to use 3 double quotes, and then we're going to print out this happy face. Let me bring it up on the screen so you can see it. If I can find this page number. Almost. So we wanted to print out this little happy face. So here is the print characters that we're going to try to print. Can you do that? Can I copy and paste it? Okay, let's see if we can. We can do this. So because we have the 3 double quotes, Python is going to print out whatever we enter beneath this. So I'm going to do, what does it look like? I don't know, about 10 for the little top of the head. And then The pipe character, the up and down line, the bar, is shift backslash. So it's your shift key, and then that key right above enter. So that first bar, we want to just have spaces all the way across to the second one. And then our next bar, we're going to have zeros for the eyes. I'm going with my bars here. Now my nose is going to be a less than. See who can get the prettiest one here. Okay, so then for cheeks, we have kind of a blank. And then for the mouth, we're going to start here. I'm not sure. What do you think that character is?
A period?
Is it a period?
Looks like a period.
Okay. That sounds good to me. That looks good. And then a sideways quote. The last of the mouth then, is that 3 periods, you think? My mouth looks a little wonky today, but I'm going to end this thing. So I want to end it with 3 double quotes and a closing parenthesis. That looks weird, doesn't it? So if you saw idle flash there, kind of when it saw my closing parenthesis, it was like, oh, thank goodness you closed that string. So I had this ugly ASCII art. I don't know if it really counts as art. Kind of a crooked face man. This is my happy crooked face man. So with our print statement, we were able to use the 3 double quotes to output, bless you, this multi-line display. So we're going to print that if mood is 1. Now let's try something else. I'm going to press enter a couple of times to leave a white space there. And then I'm going to back tab and put in ELIF. And ELIF is short for else if in Python. So that means I'm going to add another condition. So I'm going to say ELIF mood equals 2. Now if mood equals 2, we're going to say that's a neutral mood. And I'm going to copy this thing because I sure don't want to do it again. And now I'm just going to change the mouth. Let's see what I can change here. It's supposed to just have like some hyphens across there. And then I didn't really close him. Very well in the last one. So my face is just kind of hanging out in nowhere land. I don't have a chin, but I'm all right with that. Let's try to run this thing. We don't have any def statements, so we don't have to worry about calling any main or anything. If I click on run and run module and say okay, I probably got a a random number that I hadn't put code in for yet. So I'll try it again. Give me a 1 or a 2. Ah, finally. Okay, so I got my 2 there. That's okay. It's not as bad as it looks in my code. It looks pretty rough in my code. He's coming out okay. All right. Is everybody's work okay? Get any error messages? Got some mangled code somewhere? Everybody's got them? No red messages? Okay, if you got it, let's check for 3. So we're going to do elif again. Mood equal 3. In our mood 3, we're sad. So I'm going to paste my face. And then let's see, I think I want to move this one down. Pretty sad. And then the last thing I want to do is put in some bounds checking. Now we shouldn't get any other value other than 1, 2, or 3 because we told our random number generator those were the numbers we wanted. But we're going to go ahead and be proactive and also kind of document the fact that we would only take 1, 2, and 3 with a final else statement. Our final else statement would be an illegal mood. So we're going to put that print. Let's see. Now in this print statement, we're going to output illegal mood value. And then they have in parentheses, you must be in a really bad mood. Now we should never get that message, right? Because we just aren't allowing anything else to be returned into our mood variable. But I'd like to put this kind of code because again, like I said, it documents again the fact that 1, 2, and 3 are the only values we expect. And somebody looking at this is going to be reminded of that. Okay, we should be able to run now. We should be able to run it over and over without any sort of unexpected responses. Got mad at me. Let's see, it doesn't like my string. Oh, look, I do all these giant ones and then miss the closing double quote on the normal one. Try that again. Yeah, I'm a dragon there. Feel like I'm a dragon. You bring that up so everybody can see it. Is it working?
can probably make it better. Better art there.
Now we use this big giant block print where we use the backslash character as an escape character to tell Python that what was coming up was something unusual, but we wanted it to be handled as just standard character string. So our character string began with the 3 double quotes and ended with the 3 double quotes. So this escape character right here is what allowed us to do that giant block. Now, could we have just done 3 or 4 or 7 print statements and printed each separate line of that face out if we wanted to, instead of just doing one big string? We could do that, right? We could just have printed and printed the top of the head and then another print statement.
Wouldn't it have spaced them all out because it puts line return between prints? Or maybe it doesn't.
Well, it would go down to the next line, but that's kind of what we want. But you're right, we could run into some sort of spacing thing. So you do have that as an option, but this way of doing it did allow us to completely control how we wanted it to be output. We didn't have to worry about any rearranging of anything as it went through, and all that was good. Okay, let's save it. Now, before I close it all the way, though, I'd like to open my Python quick reference document and add a little bit more. So last time, we added our if statement. So we just put that we had the keyword if followed by our condition and the colon. Let's add a little bit more here. I'm gonna click there at the very end and press enter to add a new line or two. I'd like to be able to mention the elif. So with an elif, it must have a preceding if statement. So I can't just have an elif statement out there all on its own. It won't stand alone. It only stands with an earlier if statement. The elif statement then is going to be looked at if the if statement is not true, right? So if the condition on the if statement is false, the elif statement will be evaluated. I've got a word spelt wrong, huh? Okay, there we go. I'll believe it. Now, when I'm working with an elif also must have a condition. So I can't just say the word elif and think that my code is going to be interpreted properly. And lastly, it has a colon at the end. And its statement body is indented. So our example was a really good one. We said, okay, we're going to have 3 different numbers from this random number generator. If the number is 1, do this stuff. Our body was indented in our if statement and kind of everywhere. And then we said, elif, that number is 2, we want to do something else. Elif, that number is 3. And so we can just keep going and going and going. Finally, at the very end, we could do else. One more. So else, Again, with a lowercase e. Also must have a preceding if. And this is like the last condition. So it's kind of like, you know, what are you going to cook for dinner? Do you have steak? No. Do you have lobster? No. Do you have hot dogs? Yes. That's what you're going to cook, right? That's your last condition. And that's what your else is. Now your else has a colon at the end. And the statement body is indented. I mean, typing those. Now, when we're using Word, we can highlight things like that and stuff if you want to. One thing, like in our if statement, if we clicked on that colon, we could use the text highlight color thing to highlight the fact that we have to have that colon at the end, if that's something that would help remember it or remind you. Now, the only other place that we've had that is in our def statement when we define a function. So we could highlight it there also. I'm looking at our code, trying to think if there's anything else that we need to add. I think that's pretty much everything. Oh, well, yes, there's important things we need to add, right? We use the import statement. Now, where do you want to put that? We're starting to get a little bit unwieldy here. I'll go ahead and just add another line or two to add it. I want you to start thinking about some organization. So import lib name. So import loads a library of system functions. And then we saw that we could use the random library. We could set variable equal to random dot rand in int for integer, sorry, 1, 3. And that would set variable to a random number between 1 and 3. Uh-huh.
So you could do random float, you could do random float as well.
You can do what?
You want to do a random float. Don't know why you would want to, but could you use like standard algebraic notation for a domain to go say we want to do between 1 and 3, but we want to exclude 1 and 3, but every float up to those.
You have to look through, because I think that you would have to have a more specialized library to do that. Or you could write it.
Like these are all user-defined functions, right? So we want to build all these functions that are presumably also running Python.
Python. Yeah,
So
that's where they
find
came
the
from.
functions
Somebody
that we track
thinking of
everything
something
around.
like that that they would like to be able to do. So that's
why Python is so dynamic and always changing. So lots of stuff that we could do. But sure, you can definitely start searching, and all, those kinds of questions are perfect for practicing, you know, and just seeing what you can find. Let's save this. And I want to look at Canvas and see. Now this assignment, this is due on Thursday. And this is one for you to work on your own or here in lab time. And for this one, anytime there are these homework assignments that you guys have, using subprograms, using functions is totally optional. Right at this point, you're being given examples with both, doing it both ways, and you can just do it whichever way you would like to accomplish the objective, that's fine. This is very similar to one of the programs that's presented in your Python books. So it's not exactly the same, but it's super, super similar. So you should have some good examples for it. Let's see what else then. Make sure that I'm not leaving you hanging somewhere. And then the other things that we have are the Code Academy Unit 3 and Runestone Academy Section 7. Whoa, it jumped. Their if statements are a little further on down. Now, I'm going to give you lab time because these are a little bit longer, especially the Code Academy one. About the Code Academy conditionals, whenever you're doing it, you're reading this stuff over here on the side and then you're typing everything in. Some of these conditions that they want you to type in, you might need to just copy and paste, you know, copy from the instructions and paste into the code window. You know what I mean, right? So that you get it exactly like they want it. Because some of the conditionals are, you know, like 400 characters long, and we don't want to do a bunch of typing practice. I want you to understand what the conditional is doing more so than being able to type out the 450 character if statement that they give you that's very, very challenging. So copy and paste. Copy. Should I say that? I did. Copy and paste, because otherwise you'll never get to it or you'll come after me or something. So I don't, whatever you have to do. Now, Code Academy is not going to let you copy and paste to the point where you don't know what's going on. If you find that happening, stop, you know, really. But as long as you're reading through the information that it's presenting and understanding that the end result is either going to be true or false, you're getting the gist of it. So you don't need to type those 500 character things that they give you. The runestone should be a lot easier. So lots to do. So we're going to stop and have lab time if nobody has any questions. Any questions?
I did have a question. So in the book, there were two other lines of code in that mood computer.
Oh.
There was a mood state, or there was a state, or the print statement to say today after smiley face, and then there was an input statement. I was just curious what the purpose of that input statement was.
Oh, let's do him. I missed him. He's got code here. If yours is already saved, don't worry, we'll add him. So I'm going to back tab to get out of our else clause. And they wanted to do one last print statement with ... today. Kind of finish up that mood thought. And then instead of just so abruptly ending like we were, they would like to use an input statement. And in the input statement, you've seen it done both ways. I've shown you how we could use a print statement preceding the input statement to prompt our user, or we can put our user prompt within our input statement. This is going to have the user prompt within the input statement. They're starting with two special characters. The \n says to go to a new line. So that should leave a blank line in the output. And then the next \n will leave another blank line in the output. And then we should see the message, press the enter key to exit. And this is like a closing message. So I'll run this. And now, instead of just being presented with that prompt when it gets done, so I was kind of abrupt, I see the nice closing message. You are really messed up today. And now it says press the enter key to exit. So I can press enter and it'll close the program. Do you guys like that nice closing thing?
Mm-hmm.
You can see that. Pretty handy. Thank you, sir. You were missing it. Big important part for us to see. And I think that it's really interesting because we're using in this code that input statement, not because we want input, but just to use it for its purpose, to make the screen hang and wait for the user to do something. So it shows us how we can use some of those commands for something a little different than what they were intended. Now that \n is a control code. Whoops, I'm gonna tip over. And whenever, back in the day, output used to pretty much go to a printer, and we would want a printer to go down to a new line instead of printing over the stuff we'd already printed. So the \n was a printer control code to say go to a new line. We have some other control codes like \t says insert a tab character here. We don't see it in the output because we just see the resulting tab character. And then we can have the new line, and we can also see a \r, which is a carriage return. And again, it relates back to old typewriters, because with old typewriters, you had to do a carriage return to move the paper up one, and then a new line to go back to the beginning. And so it really took two things to get a typewriter to the next line to be typing. So thank God we don't have to do that anymore, but we still get stuck with some of those control codes that are left over. So that's what that \n is. Just go to a new line, and you'll see it a lot in all sorts of different languages.
Yeah, but our digital word processors don't ding. That's not satisfying at all.
You need it to ding. Da-ding, da-ding, da-ding. It's always good to have that nice ding. Probably spent millions of IBM development dollars trying to get a ding in word processors. Ding, ding. And actually, we could do a ding with this input statement too, and that would be another reason that you would want it, because it probably does an audible. If we had speakers and Python audio and things like that, you'd probably be able to hear a ding from that input statement. Because any sort of interrupt like that to users, sometimes it can be important for it to have an audible signal too. All right, letting you work. Any other questions? Yell at me if you have trouble.
Is the \n character standard across many languages? Why?
Because it was a new line escape sequence for printers. So just they all use the same things. get those silly old printers and typewriters to do things.